How's it going, guys? Thank you for joining me on the Faith and Based podcast. This is the first live stream that I'm doing. And yeah, I mean, this is pretty much very similar to what I've been doing when I'm in front of the camera and communicating with everyone. And so I think this is going to be real easy for me because I'm already used to chatting in front of the camera. So let me first start off with a quick little prayer. Thank you, God, for everything I have. Please bless this podcast so I'm able to speak from my heart and with love and um, help me, guide me with the Holy Spirit that every word that comes to me is true and helps bless others. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. So thank you guys for joining. It's cool to be able to speak to people on the podcast, and I've had some people submit topics that they want for me to discuss, and I think that's going to be cool for me to not only share what's on my heart but also share things that other people might be interested in knowing about. Um, so so yeah, I mean, really, that's how Faith and Base, like when I started shooting my videos, that's how it started. Was I have no script. I've always just gone straight from the heart, and whatever was inside of me, I decided just to go with it. So I could first start off by talking a little bit about how I got the name, right? My clothing brand, and then now this whole podcast. Uh, Faith and Based, right? It's a name, and it's a play off of faith based, which is like a word people use as like an adjective for things that are Christian or having to do with God, right? Um, and so it's kind of a word play off that, but also based is kind of like I guess an internet lingo, internet term for somebody that doesn't that's very themselves, and they don't really care what society thinks about it, right? And also it's kind of also on like the higher knowing of things, right? I mean, dare I say conspiratorial, right? Where you're awakened to what's happening around you. So that's kind of like the whole concept with faith and based. And the epiphany came upon me when I was more in the world, and as I started waking up, I started realizing, man, like this whole world's like really fallen. Like a lot of people are spiritually and mentally sleepwalking. Like they don't really know what's going on in this life, right? And you see it by their actions, and what they say, of course, but really like with their actions, and that really opened my eyes, and then the more that the veil gets uncovered, the more that's all you see. So, for example, there's a gym close by to my house, and every once in a while I go, and it's funny because as where I'm at now in my age, I I feel like I really show my age, right? Because I see some of the younger generation, like Gen Z and whatnot, and they're just everything they have has just like demonic messages on everything, it's like everything is like so like the whole gravitas is f you, I'm the best, or there's a clothing company, wolves over sheep, or something along those lines, and everything is just very like aggressive and like I'm the best, f you, and it's just it's like, man, like whatever happened to something like kind of nice, like kind of sweet. Like I get it, granted you're at the gym and it's like all this like bro stuff, but it's like, man, does everything need to be so like flagrant and just like volatile? um so yeah, I really feel like there's an opportunity there. It's like a lot of these kids, they're really sleepwalking. They don't realize how the clothes that they're wearing is giving off an aura of like filth, right? Like if I see someone wearing that, I'm gonna say, bro, you're a piece of crap, and that's what I think in my head. Now, I'm not gonna say that to them, obviously, but you see skulls and all this like demonic stuff or whatever, and like, and it's funny because it's even on the tattoos. It's like everything, and when I'm there, and I'm just like, man, like this whole world is like really like fallen, right? So what I tell people, and sometimes when you have these revelations, it's like, what do you do about it? It's like, okay, fine, I noticed it. Now what? Right? Am I gonna do something about it and try to be like the change, or am I just gonna bitch about it and just complain about it? So that was kind of like the whole concept is like, hey, let me do something where I'm actually like through the clothes, I'm actually blessing people and helping people with what's out there. And I don't know. I think there's like a lot of power in that, and not to mention this world is very monkey see, monkey do. If you're doing something, someone's gonna copy you. And like I've noticed that like in the art game, I've created a lot of art, and I've seen like people that do very similar things or whatnot, and you're like, man, um, why is somebody jocking my style, or why they copying this, or why they copying that? And then I used to like it took a long time for me to meditate on that and say, you know what, like Mike, just because you have influence, like why are you resenting people on that? So I started realizing like, hey, that's like stop taking it like a bad thing, take it as a good thing. And it's like, fine, if you're making art that maybe the spirit of it isn't necessarily the best, why don't you actually do something that's actually really really good? And now you put the challenge on other people. It's like, all right, fine, you're gonna do something for God. All right, cool, let's see if other people start copying you. All those people don't want to. Well, what spirit are they moving in? Are they working in a mocking spirit where they're just trying to mock or steal your style? Okay, fine, if that's what you really think, then let them steal your style about ripping God, and see how that's like. So it's just like kind of like a little bit of a funny thought started there. But what one topic that I wanted to get into with the live stream is looking at God as the ultimate gardener. So I'm somebody that I like gardening, and so I'm gonna start up a Facebook Live really quick, and I'm gonna do that just to get people on our YouTube, um, just to get that going. So give me 1 second here. Facebook Live. How do I do the live? Excuse me, guys. Live. All right, I'm trying to set up the Facebook Live. Look, all right, cool. I'm on it now. So I'm gonna be on the live for a little bit on Instagram just to kind of get it going and get people on the same page. Um, okay, cool. So like there's a with God is the ultimate gardener, right? And you notice the gardening metaphor a lot in the Bible, and you notice it that when you are gardening, how there's like all these ultimate truths that you could parallel with gardening, with also with in the Word, right? So, for example, when you're pruning trees, right? If you're trying to make a tree grow and have more fruits, you actually take away. You're taking away branches, and then you'll have more fruits. So, which actually seems like a bit of a juxtaposition, right? So most people think more equals more, but in gardening, it's like no, you take away the branches, you take away, and you're gonna have more. So and that's really profound, and that's very much how God works, right? That sometimes you actually need a sacrifice, and then you'll receive more. And it's funny because that's not like what the world tells you. It's actually quite opposite, you know. So there's just like a lot of like spiritual truths in that way. And yeah, you really notice how when you work in the garden, how you're actually communing with God, because I mean really God is nature. That's what he created, right? So and you know, there's all kinds of things with going outside and grounding or receiving sunlight, and really it's just being one with nature, obviously, right? And that's a way for you to be able to connect to God, the creator. And yeah, so I really find it funny that all the nutrition with food and whatnot, it's they're the powers that be, or whatever you might have you, is that whenever there's something that's nice and organic, they buy out all those different companies, and then they put their own processed stuff in it, and then they end up poisoning people, right? So it's like you have to really always go back to God. You go back to nature, and it just becomes so obvious, like when you walk in this way, that you just you can't unsee it, right? So yeah, I mean, even like with planting a seed, right? So you know, there's a lot of like biblical metaphors with like planting the seed, and then it takes time. It starts as a seed, it turns into a sprout. Things that are godly take time to grow, and then after time of watering it and sunlight, eventually the leaves will start growing, the branches, and then you'll start bearing fruit, right? But that's not overnight. It's not like doing drugs, smoking crack, doing something where you get a quick fix. And the thing is that we're programmed in our society for the quick fix, essentially, right? So yeah, I mean, it just gets deep that the more you study gardening, you start noticing like there's a reason why there's so many gardening uh metaphors in the Bible, because really, like, God is like the ultimate gardener, right? I mean, even talks about you know, separating the wheat from the chaff, right? From the weed, essentially, the wheat from the weed. And it's like, hey, the people that are good, you're the wheat, but you got to eliminate the weeds, you know. But he says that he lets them grow together, right? Because otherwise, like, you'll damage, if you pull out the weed right away, you actually damage the wheat. So you actually let them get big and grow them together, and then eventually they get divided. So it's the same thing, like when you die and and it's your time to get judged. It's like, yeah, you can continue sinning, you can continue sleepwalking, you continue being disobedient to God and not listening to your heart and doing all kinds of messed up things, but then you're going to end up in a bad spot. And that's the thing that the world won't tell you, right? Because the world wants you still sleepwalking, they want you sinning, they want you doing all kinds of bad stuff, because really you're able to be controlled, right? Because the thing is, if you take away God, what's your God now? Your God is the government, your God is money, your God is all these other things. So that's kind of like the big conspiracy, right? It's like, hey, you go away from God, great. They got you. They want you on the other team. So it's pretty funny. It's like people, a lot of people are sleepwalking in that way, and you see it in the way that they move. It's like super obvious. Um, so yeah, yeah. So you know, gardening as a metaphor, I think that that one's like a really cool one. And yeah, someone submitted. This one's kind of funny. The possibility of like the Nephilim bloodline that still exists today. So, so yeah, I mean, listen. So like the Nephilim, right? Those are the Watchers, right? From the Book of Enoch, and those are the basically the angels, right? That fell from heaven, and they had sex with the women, and then they created giants, right? And then you know the giants lived in the old times, right? And there's a big, you know, there's a lot of cover up with the whole giants thing, right? A lot of people are like, wait, what a second, giants actually existed? it's like, yeah, I mean, the Smithsonian have done a lot of cover up. I mean, you can look up a lot of things on that, whether it's giant bones, huge like artifacts, like swords that are like 12 feet big, or huge bit like doors and stuff, or doorknobs that were like meant for giants. um and but it's funny because those Nephilim bloodline, if you think about it, at the end of the day, those people are still there today, right? It's like that bloodline, that gene is still here today. So it makes you really think about life, right? Like who uh who has that bloodline, right? Like, did that just completely get erased in Noah's flood, or was that actually, still like around, like today, even, for example, So, yeah, I mean, some of these deeper truths are interesting to think about. Is how could possibly, like the Nephilim bloodline still influence people today, which, I think it's pretty interesting. Um, yeah, thank you for that topic. Yeah, I mean, it's funny that the more that you have like information and knowledge about this kind of stuff, it does make you really think about who's who and what is what, right? So someone operating with like a demon influence, is somebody like, if someone's talking to you and they're always mocking you, is it that person and that soul, or are they operating under like an influence, right? A demonic influence, something negative, something spiritual, right? Because the more that you move in this walk, you realize that everything is spiritual at the end of the day. It's not, you know there's more to be seen than just, what you see is what you get. um so I mean, it really lets you know, like, what's the spirit that you're operating with. Like, you could feel it, right? At the end of the day, we're spirit bodies, we're spirit people. Like, you can kind of feel if someone's really, like, really genuine and really graceful and really loving. You feel that. Whereas if somebody is very, like, mocking, they're arrogant, they're crass. It's like, bro, like, what spirit are you really even operating with? um so yeah, I mean, I think that, people, I think a lot of people, especially like with movies like The Exorcism and all these kind of things, like, um they said they couldn't hear me. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Spitting facts, but I can't hear you. All right, well, sorry about that. Oh, you know what, I think it was covered with my, I had my iPhone covered the little sound thing. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Um, anyways, sorry about that. I'll figure out how to do the iPhone thing. I don't know if I flip it around this way. Is that better? Okay, yeah, maybe I flip it around upside down. Maybe. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, I got deviated there because apparently they couldn't hear me on my Instagram live, and sorry about that. Yeah. So, anyways, I started off this company. It's clothing line, Faith and Base. I decided to take things up into another level and focus on, podcasting and getting my spiritual messages out there. Because really, at the end of the day, clothes are cool, right? But you could really, influence and change the world with the word, with your voice. And there's a lot of gravy, and God used his voice to create, like in Genesis, God spoke the world into existence. So speaking, there's a lot of gravy in that, and communicating and speaking. And I think that, when people say watch what you say, and there's power in words. So a lot of like Christian folks will be like, oh, that's all like, spiritual stuff. It's not necessarily like, there's no truth in that. You're giving too much power to like all this other stuff. But it's like, no, like there is a lot of gravy and truth into that, in that I mean, what you see, what you say is what you will receive at the end of the day. So that's why our words have so much power, right? And a lot of those conspiracy people will talk to you about like spells, right? Spelling. You're putting a spell out there. So you really do have to be mindful of your words. When you curse, right? You're saying a curse word, but you're cursing. You could be cursing something, and even with so I've been doing some YouTube videos, and with the YouTube videos, I'm actually reading the Bible verses, but I'm reading it out of my own mouth, and I think there's a lot of power in that too, because essentially I'm invoking God, right? um and some people might not view it that way, but you really have to think about that, is that by saying the Bible verses out loud, you're invoking God. Just like how they say don't say certain things, well, why don't you say other things that are more holy and more good, you know so I think that that's something for people to kind of marinate on, is really the a lot of things that are deeper are signs and symbols and words, and how you use your words. And you could use your words as a noose and choke yourself out, or you could use your words to really empower you and bless people around you. And even the word bless, right? So people say you can't say bless, it's be less. Don't say bless, say bliss, or say this or say that. So I mean, I never want to be someone that I get so caught up in the tit for tat, and I don't focus enough on the message and what's behind what's being said, right? Like I remember I was speaking to someone, and they were like, "Oh, there's Yahweh, there's Jehovah. Oh, he's not God. It's Yahweh. You have to say it by his proper name and all this kind of stuff." And listen, I respect the head knowledge, right? I respect it, but at the same time, it's like you have to lead with your heart, right? Like God is not dumb, right? He's going to be like, "Oh, okay, like you mean it like this, that's fine." I mean, granted, like I'm sure he appreciates being called like the more, the proper Yahweh name, right? But at the same time, if you're communicating with a guy off the street and you're talking over his head saying Yahweh and saying all this different stuff, maybe he doesn't even know what you're talking about. And then you're not able to communicate in that way, excuse me, because he doesn't even understand you. So, I mean, I guess there's always like levels of truth and level of knowing, especially like because at the end of the day, you want to influence and you want to be able to communicate with the other person, right? You just can't be talking over people's heads. Um, anyways, Instagram, I'm going to hop off. Sorry that I guess my sound was messed up earlier. But go on my YouTube channel and subscribe and rep faith and based, and that's what's up. Peace out. Okay, cool. So now, yeah, that was it. That was fun. Just a little sample for the people on YouTube. I mean, I'm sorry, on Instagram. Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason why I put it on Instagram is listen, to be honest with you, I don't even like Instagram too much. I don't like a lot of social media, but at the same time, I have to use it. So I actually, I went on a large like fast from smoking, from doing all kinds of stuff, and I really wanted to do that fast because I wanted to get closer to God. You know, God sees what you do, and if you're doing things in the proper way, He's going to be able to acknowledge that. So if you're fasting, if you're taking away from something, right, something that you love, or a vice that you have, He sees that, and He's gonna respect you for that, and dare I say, He'll even like potentially bless you for that. So I think that that's something to keep in mind. To if you do want to show God, hey, I'm about it. I'm a ride or die. Like I'm down. Like let's go. It's like, all right, cool. Like then why don't you do some demonstrations? Why don't you fast? Why don't you sacrifice something? Why don't you not, abstain from this. Why don't you not blaze, not drink, not, do, you know, have sex with all kinds of women, or like, whatever your vice is, right? Um, so I think that it's important for people to kind of acknowledge that. Um, because I think at the end of the day, it's if God is truly everywhere, He's going to be able to see the things you're doing. And going back to what I said, that God's not stupid. If He sees what you're doing is like your heart's like in the right spot, He's going to rep you for that. He's going to say, "Okay, nice. Like that's my that's my dog. I see what you're doing there." Right? He's not going to, he's not going to like be ignorant to that. You'll get blessed eventually, especially if you're on the right path and doing the right things day in and day out, and you're doing sacrifices for the greater good. Like he's gonna rep that. He's gonna be like, "Oh man, that's my dog. Like I see, I see what you're doing. That's what's up." Um. So yeah. Let me see if I got any more things talking about here. Oh, look at that. I have my connection's off. All right. Damn. Wonder if I could refresh my stream here. Oh man. Oh man, what could I do here? Yeah, I gotta end my stream.